Psalm 130 verses 5 and 6 says this: I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning, more than watchmen wait for the morning. Over the last few weeks, we've been following along with the lectionary, which is like a whole calendar worth of readings through Scripture with multiple readings assigned to every single day of the year. And if there is a theme through the readings which are assigned to today, it's that of waiting. We have that theme in what I just read in Psalm 130 about waiting for the Lord, like watchmen, in fear of what the darkness holds, standing on top of the city wall, gazing out to the horizon for the first light of dawn. And then there's a selection here from Lamentations as well, Lamentations 3, verses 19 to 26. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. And then in the New Testament today, there's a scene which follows on from where we've been the last couple of weeks in Mark's Gospel, a scene where two people have had to endure a wait. We see Jesus surrounded by crowds, and he's approached by a synagogue leader called Jairus, whose daughter is sick and on the point of death. And Jairus falls at the feet of Jesus and begs that Jesus might come home with him to save his daughter's life. And Jesus agrees, and they can't get there fast enough. But halfway there, with the crowds pressing in around them, Jesus senses more than just a casual touch on his clothes. And here is a woman who has been bleeding, the text says, for 12 years, who has spent all that she has on doctor's appointments and private consults, and yet whose condition has only gotten worse. A woman who has waited almost to a loss of hope, and yet when she hears the commotion of Jesus walking past, reaches out in desperation and is completely healed. And then while Jairus endures the wait of Jesus stopping to speak with her, in that wait, some people arrive from his home to say that his precious daughter has died. And now, of course, if you know the story, that isn't the end. Jesus goes to the house and the daughter is raised, but still there's the agonizing in between. There's this 12 years of waiting for this woman whose hopes and resources have been wound up in the wait. And then there's the agony of the wait in the journey home for this father who's just hoping against hope that they're going to make it back there in time. The final Matariki theme for this morning is about looking to the future. It's about setting ourselves up for the year ahead. It's that New Year's resolution type stuff, goals and aspirations, a hopeful looking forward. And for many of us, that is really easy stuff. It comes naturally because our world is filled with the prospects of a New Year's hope right now. We're not hibernating here in the middle of winter. We've got goals and we're busy ticking them off. We're working towards a brighter future for ourselves. But I guess where that theme of New Year and Matariki and this theme in the lectionary of waiting might come together this morning is perhaps in a word to those of us who might be finding it hard to look forward with that same sense of optimism. For those who, like Jairus or the woman in Mark's Gospel, know what it means even now to be waiting for the salvation of the Lord. Because there's a sense there, isn't there, in the repetition of this theme throughout Scripture, that waiting is to be expected. There's a precedent for it. When we wait, we find that we are in the company of the many who have walked in these paths before. We're caught up in much bigger things. It's not just us. All creation, in fact, waits, Paul writes at one point in the New Testament. And yet, waiting is hard. I know this because I'm not a particularly patient person. That fruit of the Spirit has not yet ripened in me. I love lecturing on patience as a father, like when our precious Daisy is wondering when dinner is going to arrive, and when for her 2 minutes away might seem the same as 2 days. Sure, I can show up and talk about waiting there, but just wait until I buy something online and find me obsessively checking the delivery status on the package for the 3,000th time, or even now in this space, sitting in a room waiting to get out of isolation. Waiting is not easy. And when it comes to the really important stuff, when it comes to waiting in the real deal unknowns, in the genuine darkness where our eyes and our hearts are straining for any glint of sunrise on the horizon to rid us of our fears, and the life and death stuff and the long-term suffering, those stories from Mark's gospel multiplied out in the myriad of ways that they might be in our own lives right now, well, waiting is at times next to impossible. It's there that often repeated question in the Psalms, how long, O Lord, takes on a new significance for us, and yet still there in equal measure find alongside that question this resolution repeated time and time again to wait. And so I guess what might be important for us to get our heads around this morning is that to wait in faith is not the same as for us to be abandoned to a kind of meaningless uncertainty. In faith, there is rather an intent. Dare I say it, Peter Blythe, there is a posture for us to assume. As we wait, we are not simply waiting, we are watching for something. One of my favorites, Tish Harrison Warren, she writes that to watch implies more than waiting. She says it's not the bored malaise of standing in line at the DMV, which is the Department of Motor Vehicles. You know, you see it in US movies and TV shows. Go and take a number and have to sit and it's always just people waiting. It's not that. She says it implies attention. To watch is to yearn. It is to hope. It's the lover, flowers in hands, searching for that one face in a crowded airport. It's the expectant mother, she says, on alert for the first signs of labor. The believer's constant posture is to lean slightly forward in anticipation. We wait for God to act, to set things right, to show up and work. Whether that work is surprising and miraculous or simply just a quiet changing of the tides. We wait for God to bring healing to the sick, to bring peace to our conflict, encouragement and disappointment, clarity and befuddlement, and sometimes he does. But also, she says, sometimes the sick die, and the conflict worsens, and the disappointment deepens, and the confusion thickens, and yet we continue to watch and wait, knowing that the moment that we can see, the small circle of light, is not the whole road, and it's not the whole story either. The hopeful posture of Psalm 130 and in that Lamentations text as well is that though it is yet to arrive, still the arrival is imminent. There is something to be looked for. There is a certainty that deliverance will come, even if right now it is beyond what we can see. The testimony of those stories in Mark is that though at times it might appear to be hopeless, though the wait is long, though the timing on our end appears to just be completely out of whack, yet even here still God is close at hand. Salvation is close at hand, and with him comes healing and hope and resurrection life. It's with then this kind of hopeful certainty, this faithful, watchful posture that in the hard times of waiting, we might be able to join Paul in his writing to the Corinthian church, where he says that though we are hard pressed on every side, we are not crushed. Though we might be perplexed, we are not in despair. Though we are persecuted, we are not abandoned. Though we are struck down, we are not destroyed. We are waiting in the faithful certainty that our wait will not be in vain. Over summertime, Alyssa planted a swan plant just outside our living room window. And in late autumn, a couple of incredibly brave monarch caterpillars set about munching on that plant through wind and hail, and then they did what caterpillars do, and they set themselves up in their chrysalis, and they really hunkered down. I thought that they were dead. Like everything that you read about monarch butterflies says that should be like 15 days max, but 3 weeks later and nothing had happened. The conditions had just been too harsh, I said to the kids. It was too rough for them to survive, but I was wrong. One day, one morning, there they were. These beautiful wings unfolding in the sunlight. You know, there's an inevitability about things, an inevitable trend towards the good. There's the guarantee in the Christian life of an impending arrival, a new city, God's home among us, all things made new. It's just that, well, maybe it's just going to take a while. And if it's you this morning, for whom the opportunity to reflect in this Matariki season is less one of gratitude and perhaps more one of lack, less perhaps hopeful optimism for what lies ahead and more kind of fear and uncertainty. If you are one who knows what it means to wait right now, can I encourage you again that your waiting is not in vain. It is good to wait quietly, the scripture says, for the salvation of the Lord, which is sure to come. Manawatia a Matariki.